Hi people, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Honey. Today we're talking about having your Pluto in the third house. So what is the third house? What is Pluto? Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. Scorpio is home to the 8th house. The 8th house represents crisis, transformation, death, rebirth, intimacy, sexuality, other people's resources, joint finances, occult subjects. It's a very, very deep house. Third house is home to Gemini. Gemini is the co-ruler to Mercury. Virgo is the ruler. And Mercury is all about processing information, how you take in information, your communication style, technique, etc. The third house represents your siblings. It can also represent your cousins, car journey, short car journey, your local travels, up the road to the shops, communicating, your early years of education. It's a very important house to understand how this person felt as a child. Pluto is a malefic. Whatever house it falls into, it causes some type of trauma, crisis, especially if there are aspects to the Pluto. It just makes things a lot more difficult to deal with. So when Pluto falls into your third house, there's going to be a lot of issues in regards to your communication style. And this could mean someone who come over from a different country. It could be an immigrant, depending on the rest of the chart, because that obviously matters, okay? But maybe a ninth house sun person, would show that they may have traveled from a different country, they have an accent, or they're struggling to pick up that country's language. There would have been a communication issue going on here. And a lot of the people that are in my generation, which is the Pluto Scorpio generation, a lot of you guys would have your rising as Virgo. So Virgo is the ruler of Mercury, and Virgo is all about communicating. Like, Mercury is at home in Virgo. They value communication a lot, and I will do a rising series at some point. But what I found is people who are Mercury ruled tend to experience a lot of communication issues on a day-to-day basis, and not because of them in particular, but they never seem to be quite understood, and it frustrates the hell out of us, because I'm a Gemini rising, right? Hence why I change my hair every fucking video that I do. I change my look. But the point is, we go through communication issues on a daily basis, and even if we say something that's so clear to someone, they may not completely process it as quickly as we might. So anyway, when your Pluto falls into your third house, it's going to create some type of issues regarding communication, okay? Particularly as a child, you may have felt like you were not being listened to. Pluto in this house can also mean you may have had a speech problem, or you may have felt like you're just not being heard, You're just not being heard by anybody, and this can really hinder you communicating and self-expressing. Pluto third house people, when they was young, they would have been someone who, asked lots of questions towards their parents. And I find with this particular placement, the people around them in their household may have been talking a lot about 8th house subjects, sex, death, occult around them. And them being a Scorpio in the third, Pluto in the third house, as children, you're very intrigued by this stuff, and you want to listen, you ask questions about it, but you are shut down. You're shut down because this is grown folks' business. Stay out of it. But the thing is with these people, Pluto is all about investigating and getting to the depth of something. They would have been that child that would be annoyed that they can't join in with adult conversations, but it would not stop them from going to learn about it elsewhere. Like, I know someone who lost their virginity very young because they assumed that their mother was someone who was active, and it's not something that you talk about, but it as a child. And they went to go and do what their mum was doing because that's just what they do. It's just about getting that information because it just makes you feel like you were on that same level. And it's crazy that the person that I know that has this placement, he is very, very into learning about spirituality. 8th house subject matters. And he learned a lot of this stuff when he was much younger. But I like to look at the Chiron as well, because the Chiron also represents trauma. This is where he dived really deep into learning a lot more about 8th house subject. a lot of people being 16, 17, 18 don't really talk about, spirituality. Is, their conversations are very above the surface. But what it is with third house Pluto people, their level of understanding becomes very, very mature, which is why to a lot of people their age who are not on the same level don't look at them as being a bit different or a bit weird, because people who are 17 or whatever are not out here talking about chakras, meditating, really real spiritual stuff. Like 17-year-olds want to go out and just have fun with their friends. And it's a very different experience for that Pluto third house person. What I've also found with this placement is these people question everything. You can say to this person, the reason why the sky is blue is because someone, just sprays blue paint into the sky or whatever. It's a stupid example, I know, but I've got to throw something out there. As a Pluto third house child, you're like,
what kind of bullshit is that? Okay, all right, cool.
But in your head, this is like some fuckery, but it plays in your head. And you would be that child that goes to research it, goes online, why is the sky blue? Why is this that? Why is this? Why? Like, you question everything because you need to find the truth in everything that's there, because the third house, it represents everything that's to do with processing information, communicating. So as you grow, your opinions are always going to be justified because you've been shut down in your life. You know what it's like for you to feel like you haven't got the answer and someone shuts you down. It's not a nice feeling for you. And this is where you guys are extremely manipulative, because someone who does a lot of research and learning into things, they're going to have a lot of justifiable opinions. And your opinions can become so justifiable, it becomes someone else's truth. So when you're speaking and saying, the reason why Trump was made president was because it wasn't an inside job, and he'll go into a tangent speaking about how it's an inside job. And you, as someone who doesn't really know much about politics or conspiracy theories, because of how good they are at manipulating or getting or justifying their point becomes your truth. They're very, very good at making sure that you are taking on board what they're saying, and that is a power trait that these people have. And this is the thing with Pluto, right? Pluto isn't a very nice planet, we know, but when we learn to use it to our advantage, it becomes our power. With Pluto being in the third house, I find these people can speak with force. Not like when Mars is in here, when they're quite aggressive in how they're speaking, It's more so when it's how they're speaking and how things can be taken as a fucking fact. Like, I can't describe it, but when you're so sure about something and other people are sitting there like, oh my God, yeah, that's a fact, because of how sure someone is saying something. So when it comes to your neighbors, right, neighbors can be the people that you live around, your community, your cousins, friends of the family, anyone who you drive to see locally, okay, or anyone who lives around you. That's basically seen as your neighbors. You've got to be very, very careful with the company that you keep or who you choose to live with. You guys are prone to having issues with neighbors, conflict. I know someone who's got this placement and he's always beefing with his neighbors, like constantly arguing, causing conflict. And it could be over the most minor situations, but Pluto third house people, you guys are best living in a gated community away from everybody. Living on your own in a house, a detached house by yourself. Be very careful because Pluto is dark energy. It can represent someone doing spell work. It could be really bad energy. Someone who is constantly depressed. That black cloud can travel. And someone who may even be suffering with addiction problems, prostitution, alcoholic substance abuse. Those neighbors that are just always drinking, always partying, always doing some fuckery next door. Music is on loud, full blast. Your walls are thin. You can hear them having sex all day. That is Pluto third house. That's what you're going to get next door. So you've got to be very careful about who you are living with, because people around you create conflict, and you may not have done nothing to them, you know. You're just coming in from work, going to sleep, cooking your meal, that's it. That's your life in your house. But next door neighbours, there can be a lot of issues going on, and you never quite know what's happening behind closed doors because you're not in there. But they are the kind of people that will do some fuckery to fuck up your happiness at home. And even when it comes to your siblings can be a massive problem for you guys. Pluto's going to cause a problem with your siblings. Sometimes if it doesn't cause a problem with your siblings, you may even have a Scorpio type of sibling who holds a lot of secrets. And the mad thing is, I know a person who has this placement and he's got bare siblings, and he's got a sibling that I recognize as being very Scorpio, but he's a Libra sun, right? But I'm looking at this little boy and I'm like, bruh, you're too quiet over there. You're just sitting there observing everyone, looking at everybody. I know you've got some Scorpio in your chart somewhere. You know, I like to look at people like that, but the siblings tend to be that sibling that may even have Pluto in their 12th house. They are collecting everyone's energy, not intentionally, but they are also notorious for keeping secrets and holding a lot of the family secrets as well. So Pluto third house people, look out for that sibling that you may have that may be out here harboring feelings or secrets. When Pluto falls into the third house, you've got to be very careful with your relationships with your siblings because it can turn nasty over a long period of time. So you're someone who has to work a little bit harder than the rest of us to maintain a good relationship with your siblings. And sometimes this can also contribute to your cousins as well, maintaining a good relationship with your cousins. There may be a cousin that you have that is harboring like real dark, deep, sinister secrets as well, because you know, I just came to light on one of my friends, one of his cousins not came out, but as Jupiter is in Scorpio right now, there's a lot of sexual secrets being revealed, and there was a sexual secret that came out in regards to his cousin, and that's caused massive conflict right now. So, you know, things like this, you guys are definitely prone to having someone close to you that is harboring like secrets. So education wise, when it came to like your early years, primary school, elementary, wherever you are in the world, early years in school would have been not the most pleasant time for you. Most kids around your age don't communicate like you. You would have had problems communicating, but also your interests are going to be very, very different. Like what I find with Pluto in the third house people, you know, when you see those posts on Instagram that say blue pill or red pill, the blue pill is always the pill that says go back to being 10 years old, but with the mind that you have now. And that's what comes to mind whenever I think of Pluto in the third house, because if we went back, us astrology people, let's just talk for a minute, right? Us astrologers, spiritual people, whatever, if we went back with our mindset right now, you know, we'd be fucking weird being 10 years old and knowing all this knowledge. This is how a Pluto third house person feels being 10 years old, because you have researched into so much. You know too much for your age. That's the thing. You know far too much. And the people around you don't know enough. They're all seen as dopes. Like, funny enough, there was a guy I did a reading for a little while ago, and he has his Pluto in his third house, and he's got his Mars in Taurus in opposition. And Mars in Taurus is seen as so relaxed, laid back, chilled out, zone, zen, whatever, right? And what happened is he was bullied in school as well. Bullying can also contribute to Pluto being in that house. Very sinister, like horrible bullying. Not just, oh, let me just pull your hair. You know, I'm going to beat the shit out of you, kind of like really aggressive style. Especially if your Pluto is badly aspected, right? And this will contribute to someone who ends up being violent back. And that's why I was saying to the guy, with this opposition with your Mars in opposition to Pluto, this is what contributes to your temper right now. Because Taurus, Mars is not aggressive. But when you've got aspects like Pluto, it creates aggressive. It creates someone who really wants to hurt you for hurting me, you know, for hurting them. With your Pluto being in the third house, it can make you someone who fights below the fucking belt. you really want to make sure that person's feeling it now because they hurt your feelings. So your words are fighting words as well as your body language. All right, Mars is all about body language and fighting and shit. And you know, when it's in opposition to Pluto, it becomes nasty. So when Mars is squaring Pluto in the third house, right, it can also contribute to experiencing sexual abuse in your school. It could be boarding school sexual abuse. Like, you hear a lot of that, actually, a lot of boarding school sexual abuse. Maybe even if Mars is conjunct Pluto in that house as well, or even from like a cousin or a neighbor, someone who's in your proximity. There could have been some type of sexual abuse. So Pluto, Mars aspects, not nice, right? There would be a form of abuse somewhere at some point. But yeah, that is my video on Pluto in the third house. I hope you guys have thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay, book a reading with me. Check out my website. It's below down there. Check out my relevant videos regarding Pluto. Check out my playlist, my whole channel. Check my whole channel out. All right, but thanks for watching, people. Take care. Have a wonderful day.